Thanks for joining me for today's special podcast episode. I am celebrating 4 years of podcasting. I have actually asked my daughter to join me for today's conversation to ask me some questions. And the things I share, you'd only probably know if you've been a friend before 2009 when I became a mum. My daughter is a lot softer spoken than I am because she was a little scared of the microphone. So you'll have to excuse her quieter voice compared to mine. Let's jump into this special podcast episode. Thanks for joining me for today's podcast episode where I am celebrating 4 years of podcasting. I've asked my daughter to join me to ask me some questions so that she can find out some things that maybe she didn't know about me and also you didn't know about me. So welcome, Tosha.
Hi. What's something people wouldn't know about you from your childhood?
I was one of 4 children, so I had 3 siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, and there's a 7-year gap between myself and my youngest, which is my brother. And I was probably like the bossy eldest child because I would decide on what we would make believe and the game, and they would then do what I asked them to do. So we would either play mothers and babies, or we would play with our dolls, or we would play schools, or being a librarian and everyone had to return their books to the library. And we also had a cubby house and we would play out there. I was always, though, coming up with games that we would play. So
what about when you went to school? Because you obviously wouldn't have ever gone with your brother or 1 year in year 6 in prep.
No, I think he was, from what I remember, I was in year 7 and he was in prep. And so when I was in primary school, I had my 2 sisters there with me, but I was really anxious child and I was always worrying about things, worrying about everyone else and worrying about what other people thought of me. And I had a lot of headaches. So I suffered from lots of headaches when I was younger.
What about when you turned 18?
So I was 18 when I was in year 12, and in August I waited till the end of year 12 to get my license. And it wasn't like now when you're practicing, like how many hours do you have to practice?
120.
And so for us, there wasn't a set amount in hours. I had a car and I would, drive it to work at McDonald's, and but I didn't get my license until after I finished year 12 because I needed to save up enough to do driving lessons. So we did do driving lessons, and I did a few lessons with my uncle and with my dad, but it wasn't like those hours. And so I went for my license in the summer of 93, and it took me 3 goes to get my license.
Fail the first 2 then?
Well, the first one, we had a manual license, not an automatic license, automatic car. It was on a hill start and it was quite a big hill, and you had to do the handbrake and engage the clutch and the accelerator at the same time. And I slightly rolled back, and so that was an automatic fail. So that was the first time. Then the second time, I'm not very good with my left and rights. I am now that I've been teaching yoga, but when I was younger, I was terrible with my left and right. And so the instructor had said to go right around the roundabout, and I had indicated left, and so that is also an automatic fail because you didn't follow the instructor's instructions, and I had to pull over. And then on my 3rd time, I finally got my license. So that was like at the start of 1994, just before I went to uni.
Okay, so you went to uni in Ballarat, and then what happened? Like, you don't still do the same thing that you studied?
Well, after that, after graduating as a teacher, PE teacher, I moved to Queensland and to the Gold Coast, and I was teaching, and I was also working as a lifeguard at Wet n Wild, the theme park.
That's not teaching though, so why'd you work there?
Because I was saving money to go to London, to be able to save enough money to pay for your flights and have some money when I arrived, and because the difference between the pound and the dollar was
different.
Yeah, so I needed to save money. So it took me 12 months to save enough money through teaching, working at Wet n Wild on weekends. So there were some weeks where I was working 7 days a week. And then in school holidays, when there wasn't teaching, I could also then work at Wet n Wild. It was like April the following year. I had enough saved and I went over to London for 3 years.
So you weren't doing uni when you went to Queensland?
No, I'd finished my teaching degree, so I was casual relief teaching in Queensland and also working at Wet n Wild.
So when you returned from London, what was something that people wouldn't?
For a start, I decided I didn't want to teach secondary anymore. I wanted to teach primary PE. So I applied for this job. The suburb was Hampton Park, but I just thought of it as Hampton, which is near Brighton in Melbourne. And I applied for the job, and then I got rung up for the job interview. And we didn't have phones with maps on it. I had to get out the Melways, and I got out the Melways to look up where the actual school was for the job interview and realised it wasn't in Hampton. It was actually in Hampton Park because they'd given me the map details, and realised it's way further out of Melbourne than I expected. And so I went to the job interview and I actually got the job. And so I stayed there for about 3 years teaching PE and just had to travel out every day from where I was living.
Where did you stay?
I was living in North Melbourne in a shared house. It's a long way from Hampton Park to North Melbourne.
So you obviously also look very different. I know a lot of people that would know you now that wouldn't realise, but you looked very different when you were like in your early 20s and all through your teenage years. So what did you
What did I do? Oh, I got older. No, I know what you're talking about. So then when I got this job, it was an ongoing job, and I decided that I would explore jaw surgery to fix my overbite that I had, and also straighten my teeth at the top and at the bottom, and also deal with the headaches, because also part of the headaches was my overbite, and the pressure that I was putting on from my jaw was giving me these tension headaches in the front of my head and the side of my head. And it was in 2005 when I had saved enough to go and do those surgeries, and I was 29 then when I actually had that all done, and I think it was 2 years of wearing braces.
Oh, so you met Dad when you had all those bruises?
Yeah, so I had the jaw surgery maybe 2 weeks earlier, and I bruised really badly, so I had a lot of bruising on my chest. It was like a footy club ball that I'd been invited to, and I wore a dress that covered the bruises that were across my chest from when I had all of the surgery for my mouth as well, because I also had maybe 6 teeth removed as well as the surgery. So we were together for 4 years, I think, before we had you, and then 2 more years, and then we had your brother.
You weren't born with like an overbite, were you?
Yeah, so I probably had an overbite most of my life when I was younger.
I thought you like had an incident with your mouth.
No incident. I just had the overbite. And obviously back in the 80s, it was really expensive to go and get braces and have that sort of work done on your mouth. And it's only as technology's got better that we found out that basically a lot of my tension headaches were also caused by my jaw. So it sounds like there was a few things that you didn't realise.
But I didn't realise you were together for 4 years before you had me.
And that was when we went to Japan, before we had you. And then we didn't get married until you were turning 5 and your brother was 2, coming up to, I think it's 11 years this year.
I swear I was like 8.
No, you were young. You were still in kinder. Thanks so much for coming and asking the questions to help me celebrate 4 years of podcasting.
Yeah, I didn't even realise it was 4 years.
I know time goes so quickly, doesn't it? Thanks for listening to Simply Happy Conversations. Thank you for joining me for today's Simply Happy Conversation. Is your family's paperwork piling up and taking over your kitchen bench? Do you waste hours searching through piles of paper clutter, looking for documents and reminder notices? Our comprehensive guide walks you through each step to help you effectively organise your paperwork and provide simple solutions to digitalize your administration processes to reduce paper clutter. Head to simplyhappy.com.au to the resource tab to get instant access today. I'd like to acknowledge the Wathaurong people of the Kulin Nation on which this podcast is recorded as the traditional custodians of the land. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.